Hello, good morning, namaskar. I am Naveen Sharma. Welcome to Victory IS. Student, in last class we discussed that how the British policies were formed. So now we have to discuss the British Act, that how if Britishers ruled on India so much long time, then we also have to mention that which policies they made. So beta, how the policies were formed by the Britishers. Basically, British company arrived in India as only for the trading purpose. The that time the Queen of England given them the power to 15 years monopoly right to trade with India and all the areas. So this right was given by the Elizabeth first. She also become one of member of this company. 217 members were in starting of this company. In this company, there have all members who were its shareholder. They were known as proprietor. So they have a group of proprietor, okay, and they have in proprietors appointed some members as a director of company, and these directors were basically rule out that how the policy of company formed and company work out. So what happened that there this company arrived just only for the trading purpose. But when they realize that many other companies also in India, so they have to, if they want more benefit, then they have to basically want some area and increase their area. So when these systems arrived, continuously Britishers were increasing their area. That time Britishers were divided in three factories. Yeah, three basically big areas they had. That is known as the Bombay, Madras and Calcutta. Calcutta was that time known as Fort William. So these were the divisions of British things, and later on, the all threes were increasing their power or their area. So these things were going on. Finally, the Battle of Plassey took place. After the Battle of Plassey, Britishers got heavy rights, yeah, heavy values in Bengal. Basically, the civil rights also came in their hand after the Battle of Buxar. So 65 become the major yeah, route changing area for the Britishers when the Treaty of Allahabad took place. By Treaty of Allahabad with the Shah Alam II, Britishers got the civil right of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. So this is the major issue for Britishers, and later on they also got some political rights because the agent from the company who was working there, it is only in hand of Britishers. So that's why the civil right and the other rights all arrived in hand of Britishers. So now the condition change. So beta, firstly we have to discuss the condition between 65 to 1772. After the Treaty of Allahabad, British got civil right of Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha, and this is the period of heavy loot. Not loot is a little bit different word. If you said it is a heavy, the highest looted of resources of any country, that time period is there. So heavy loot by the EIC in Bengal, and those Bengal, that time Bengal is the highest rich area of India, and after this loot, that become an area where the many basically peoples were died from the hunger. So now you realize which kind of loot it was. Okay. Due to continuous war, AIC financial burden increase. But if you mention this pay, oh, beta, this is 1765. This is basically they have some typing error put there. 1765. So between 1765 to 1772, okay. So Britishers fought many battles in this period. 57 Battle of Plassey, 64 the Battle of Buxar, and many other battles were took place. So due to these battles and battle with Marathas also, so due to these battles, financial burden increases on the EIC. So that's why, but they are getting the huge fund from India, but the companies is not getting some nothing, because all the funds went in the hand of the governor of companies and employees of companies. So because they are doing their own trade, much benefit they given to their own self. So finally, 1772, the condition of company became so bad, and it was a condition just like a insolvency. So 26 January 1772, when British government thought out that company is earning a lot, but the financial position of company is totally bad. Why this kind of conditions happen? So they appointed a secret committee to judge what the problem is this. And when the secret committee judge out, they get to know that companies in India, they won the area, and after winning, they got civil right and many rights they got, huge fund they got, but due to them, the company is not benefited. It is benefited by to the governors generals and other persons. That's why I hope so you aware that there have a Warren Hastings and there have in starting some governors. When they arrived India, they belongs to a local families or lower families. But when they reach out from India, they become huge fund and they become a big merchant there. So that thing is going on. Okay. So this select committee investigate the economical work of the company. Finally, in 1773, EIC demanded some economical help because British government is waiting. As this company demand the help, then we show them the actual face. So when in 1773, British government demanded the help of 1 million pounds, the British government said now they have no chance, and now we got a chance to control EIC. So on 18 May, Lord North presented a bill, okay? So this bill was presented by the Lord North. A bill is passed by the British Parliament known as the Regulating Act. Okay? So this bill is very important for us because this bill became a very historical because it's known as the Regulating Act, and many provisions were there to control the company and its affairs. So Regulating Act 1773. Okay, beta. So regulation means to regulate the functions of company. Previously I said that there have two types of functions were going on. There have a court of proprietor. Two organizations were there, court of proprietors, and second organization is court of director. There have 24 directors that time. So the provisions were made. Internal Administration Control Court of Director 24, now appointed for 4 years, and 1/4 retired every year. There have provisions was made that 1/4 retired every year, and Court of Proprietor appointed by shareholders, person who had ownership of 1,000 pounds share got the voting right. This is the condition of India that time. Warren Hastings declared Governor General of British area. At here it was said that Governor Warren Hastings now become the Governor General of whole the British area. So the factories of Madras and Bombay came in his under. Okay, because in these factories they have a position of governor only. So they have only governor position, and here the position of governor general made. Okay. So Bengal presidency now becomes supreme from the Madras and Bombay presidency. Okay. And by this regulating act, there have a provision were made that Supreme Court should be established. So basically, beta Supreme Court were established in Calcutta, which had 4 judges. Okay. Lord Impey was the chief judge there. Private trade of company employees prohibited. There have some restrictions arrived that no company employees are allowed to do the separate trade. So this act became very important for the history of company, because now the first time many burdens were took out on company, and because the government want to regulate the company and increase the participation of the British government there. And why this all thing were made? Because beta they have a time gap arrived. Because if you think out that what is going on that time, Lord, basically court of directors were in England and the governors were in India. So sometime what happened that these governors were doing something, and if they want to do take some strict action, yeah, current action, they have a time gap between the England and India. So if you send any message from India to England, it take 4 or 5 months. So that's why to take it very accurately, the post of Governor General now made. So above all governors, they have a Governor General. Okay? So this thing would take place in the Regulating Act. Then beta, what happened? There have a Act of Settlement arrived. Because in in previous Act, Regulating Act, there have many provisions were there, and that time many other British officers were not happy with these provisions. So finally a new act was passed, and that is known as Act of Settlement. So this is also very important act, okay, deal with the British things. Okay. So this act said, based on the suggestion of Edmund Burke Committee, but Edmund Burke, I hope so, if you remember his name, he was the person, Edmund Burke, who made the basically impeachment against the Hastings and other one. Okay. So you have to remember this act. This is very historical and milestone act. Okay. So in this act of settlement, many things were made based on the suggestion of Edmund Burke Committee to remove barrier of regulating act Nand Kishore case. But you have to remember this case. I hope you are aware that Warren Hastings signed a treaty with Faizabad Treaty, and by this treaty he said that he basically promised the wife of Nawab of Awadh that okay, you transferring your capital, so I am basically give a guarantee that the jewelry and other items of your begums I will basically send there, and I give the security guarantee. But actually he did mischiefs in that one, and many properties, many jewelries or this kind of things were not returned back by him. And Nand Kishore, who was Diwan that time, he was put it out this case. So finally what happened? There have some false case put on Nand Kishore and he was punished. So that's why at here, because at here, why Governor General become the huge power, and sometimes he stand against the court also. So fighting between court and him is going on. So that's why this act of settlement arrived. Okay. So you have to focus on this act of settlement. At here, the power of Supreme Court also changed. Non-interference in revenue matters by court. At here, the power of court a little bit decreased. That it said that in revenue matter, court is not allowed to interfere. The shift of appellate jurisdiction from the court to the Governor General and Council. At here, huge power is given to Governor General. So basically, okay. So at here, the Governor General become the supreme authority now. Okay. And the assertion of the application of the personal laws, Hindus law and Hindus and Muslim law for Muslim. But when Britishers arrived in India now, they basically thought out which kind of criminal law we have to make. So they decided that in India, there have two huge population groups were there, Hindu and Muslim. So if we applied our rule, maybe they stand against us. So what we have to do, we have to apply their own law. Just like there are Hindus who believe in Manu Smriti. So Manu Smriti was translated in English language as a code of Gentoo law. And for Muslims, the Hadith and other approaching books were translated. And from the Hindus, the Hindu code bill, Hindu act were made. And for the Muslim Act were made. And by that, the basically criminal offense of both were treated. So it was the major issue, okay. So acceleration of the application, okay. So from the, so these things were going on, and shift of appellate jurisdiction from the court of to the Governor General and Council, acceleration to the application of the personal laws, Hindus and Muslims law for the Muslim, okay. So this thing took place. Then beta, what happened? The first Indian Act arrived, the Pitt's India Act. Beta, before this act, Charles James Fox, this is the beta coalition government of Fox, okay, and Brooke was going there. So they presented a bill, and when they presented this bill in House of Lords, they failed. So government of Fox and Burke was fallen down, and a new government was made in England. The Pitts become the prime minister of that government, okay. So a new act passed by the Pitts government, that is known as Pitts Act, okay. So what the provision made in this act? Board of Control made, which had 6 commissioner board revenue, okay, matters were given to it. So first time Board of Control was made. So at here 2 boards were there. First Board of Control, and before it the Board of Directors. It is in England. So this Board of Control also made, and revenue matters, it allowed to give us suggestions, okay. Without permission of Board of Control, no war, no treaty announced with the Indian state, okay. Board of Directors and Board of Control had right to call back any Governor General. So this is the power given, but it is for a small time. Later on this power change. Now in Council of Governor General, there have only 3 members were left. Previously it was 4. So it so a hierarchy system appeared here. Company directors and the Board of Control powers were divided into 2 hands. So hierarchy means when the power division took place. So at here the power would be divided among them. But I said now this is not run for a huge period, because when British government requested Lord Cornwallis to reach India, he said that without the power I never be go. So please give me the power of the commanders, that I can decide war and peace. So in previous act, what the power given, that they can decide the treaty, no war and treaty. At here, this power was taken back. Okay. Lord Cornwallis arrived in India with the supreme power. He also got right to cancel the decision of the council. But Lord Cornwallis, he was the person that ICS should be made. He was father of police system. Okay. So many systems were made by him, and he was a more intelligent person among that time, that era. Okay. So this act was very important for you. You have to remember 2 or 3 things. Then beta 1793 Charter Act arrived. This is also a small act. Companies' right extended for 20 years. In most of the bills, companies' right were extended. Okay. Salary of Board of Control are given from the India's treasury. But this Board of Control members, it is allowed by the Britishers that their salary would be paid from the Indian fund. But at that time, they are thinking that if you work for India, you have to get salary from the Indian fund, because they think that India is a house where the whole money arrived. So as much we looted, we can loot. So beta later on, after basically 1857 also, when the British system were changed and the Indian Council were made, that time their salaries also paid from the India. So this kind of things is done by the Britishers. Beta Charter Act of 1813, most important Charter Act beta. In this Charter Act, it is from the 1813, 1833 or 1853. These are very important for you, because many times the question arises by the examiner from there. But a company administration again extended for 20 years. I said na that Britishers firstly decided that no company, other company from England to arrive there. So continuously the time period of companies extended for 20 years. Okay. But the monopoly of EIC on trade, especially that basically exception of trade of tea and trade with China now ended. At here, what happened? Now British government want that this EIC should be controlled because I previously said na from the basically 1773, now British government want that whole power of EIC came in the hand of British company, the British government. So that's why they are little bit now make a little change. The monopoly of EIC of trade now ended and only said that you can do the trade of tea and trade with China as you do, but in other area, the other British companies can participate. So it is only to create a burden on British company. Now company had to keep commercial account and revenue account separately. So the company is allowed that you have to make some separate accounts. Okay. This act is very important for India also because first time the provision of 1 lakh rupees. The Britishers now want that it is not okay for us to bring many persons from England. So we have to make Indians whose thinking is just like England. So for them we need education, workout. So 1 lakh spent on Indian education, especially on those kind of schools where the English language taught. Christian missionaries allowed to enter in India, but the Britishers were only company who in starting never be basically motivated towards the religious goals. If anyone asks you why the Portuguese company failed, because they are more curious against the religious goal. Why the Dutch failed? Because they are more curious to convert the peoples in Christianity. But Britishers were different. But now after 18, it's assume the area 1813, 1799 they won area of Mysore and most of the areas now came under them. So now they convert their face and now they want to focus on spread of Christianity also. So Christian missionaries were allowed. License necessary for those Britishers who want to settle in India, okay, and want to come for trade, yeah, other thing. So at here, the first time, the provision was made that license is become necessary item. You have to made it. That act expressly asserted to the crown sovereignty over the British India. First time it was shown that India should be in hand of British crown, maybe soon, maybe later, but British has whole authority on India. Okay? The company's dividend was fixed to 10.5%. It's empowered to local government to tax people subject to the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. So many provisions were made that maximum power were reached or centralized by the Britishers. Okay, then the Charter Act of 1833, also very important act. This act impacted by the Lord Macaulay and James Mill's suggestion. But Lord Macaulay, you have to underline this name. He was the person who made the foundation of English language in India. And First Law Commission was also made by him. Yeah, he was the head of First Law Commission of India. Company's administration again extended for 20 years, but monopoly fully ended. Centralization of administration, now Governor General of Bengal declared as Governor General of India. You have to underline this fact. It is very important for you. Lord William Bentinck, the first Governor General of India. Before it, beta, person is known as Governor General of Bengal. Now it known as the Governor General of whole India. Governor General, his council got right to make rule for India. A law member introduced in council and Lord Macaulay got this position. Okay. The First Law Commission set up, head was the Lord Macaulay. Section 87 of this act, no discrimination in appointment of government services. Because if we talk about Indian constitution, sometime you realize that most of the provision of our constitution we take from the Britishers. So Britishers time to time doing this thing at here to create a equality among the people. They made this provision that no discrimination in appointment of government services. So this is very important for us. And slavery system also prohibited. Okay. So beta, basically for slavery matter, there have, if you talk about the previous thing, the Firoz Shah Tughlaq was a person who make a department, Diwan-e Bandagan, for the slave. Later on, Akbar also stopped the trading of slaves. Later on, in period of Lord Cornwallis, he also stopped the trading of slaves and tried to stop this system. But finally, this system was ended. Okay, prohibited. Then with the Charter Act of 1853. Before the 1857, it was a basically last Charter Act. Now Crown can took administration to India's in own hand. So beta, sometimes people said that 1857, what happened after that Britishers decided, the British Crown decided to control India. But beta, before this act, provision is going on. They only want the occasion. And 1857 became the occasion when the company rule ended and India came under the British Empire. So now salary of the Board of Control decided by the British government. In Board of Director, they have no number of directors were decreased 18 from 24. Previous number was 24. Now the current number was 18 decided. Out of it, 6 members nominated by the Crown. So Crown got the power at here. New appointment held by the competition exams. So ICS and other services were took out. Low members declare permanent member of the Governor General Council. Okay. First time legislature council set up with 12 members. It was the introduction of the legislative councils. Before it, no legislative councils were there. At here, legislative councils were made. And later on, the Indian demands to become members in this legislative council. And so the administrative reform started. Then beta, Indian Government Act 1858. In 1857, we fought the first battle of our independence. People say what? People say it revolt, revolution, rebellion, mutiny. What they want to say, said them. But we are Indian, we have to always consider it was the first war of our independence. If we not said it, then who said it? So beta, it was the first war of Indian independence. Now India came under the British Crown. Maharani Victoria declared as the Crown of England. Viceroy that time Lord Canning, and the post of Governor General now changed in post of Viceroy. Board of Directors and Board of Control both were ended now, and the 15 members Indian Council were made, and this council led by the Secretary of India. So 15 members council and 1 secretary were made. They were stayed in England, and from their side the Viceroy would be here. So beta, what is the difference between the Governor General and the Viceroy? Governor General is basically agent by the company, and Viceroy at here directly agent of the Crown, a representative of Crown. So Viceroy is the bigger post. Appointment of Indian basically is councils members, 7 members from the Board of Director and 8 members by the British government. No attack and no war allowed without the permission of Indian Council. British government decided that no new state would be merged according to doctrine of lapse. So these are many provisions were made, and Britishers were never attacked on any state now, they decided. Then beta, Indian Council Act 1861. 5 members added in Council of Viceroy would be from the low background, starting from the portfolio system by the Lord Canning. But today, recently the election of Bihar held, and I hope so you all aware that the departments were made for every minister. So this system of departments started by the Lord Canning. So portfolio system was started by Lord Canning in India. In Council of Governors General now, now members between 6 to 12, that's 6 to 12 members in Council of Governors General. It also a very good provision. 3 Indian appointed as council, Raja of Banaras, I highlight this, Maharaja of Patiala and Sir Dinkar Rao. So these 3 Indian members were first time entered in Council of the, okay, okay, Governor, Governor or Viceroy, they have no matter. Right of issue ordinance to Viceroy for 6 months. But this ordinance, I hope you are aware that when the parliament session is not going on, Indian President can issue the ordinance. This provision, this ordinance run for 6 months. So this provision is taken from this act, 1861 Act. This provision was firstly made. Indian Council Act 1892, number of members of executive declare minimum 10, minimum is 10 and maximum is 16. Okay. At here what happened, when India arrived in hand of Britishers, so educated Indian who said 1858 Act as the basically Magna Carta of their right, now they say to British government that in England, person has right to vote. So why this right is not given to us? If we same as a part of the British crown, then give this right to us. So finally, election system of indirect by the nomination system was added. Okay, and Indian members also allowed that you can discuss on budget, but no voting right would be there. In social welfare matters, now members allowed to ask questions, but given the reply of these questions or not, it is fully in hand of the Governor General, Viceroy, Governor General. So at here, this right is given only to make Indians that, okay, you are demanding something. Just like when a child is demanding something, we give a jhunjhuna to that person, okay, and the child become happy that someone is talking to us. So same kind of things were given, but that time, in modern time, we found it that it is a simple thing, but that time for these peoples, it is a very huge victory. Then beta Indian Council Act 1909, it is known as the Marley-Minto reforms, introduced the communal representative and separate electorate for Muslim. But in 1905, when the division of Bengal took place, Britishers realized one thing, that Hindu and Muslim both are standing together. So how to stop their unity? So what the provision they made? Just like in family, if you want the separation feeling, then give the higher value to one child and criticize the second child without anything. So division between both children arrived. Same thing Britishers did. They made the special provision for the Muslim. And when they made a special provision, special seat provision for Muslims, now Hindu realized that they were the person who ruled on us. They come from the outside and ruling on us, and we are always looking, we are living together. But why they are getting a separate choice? Why they got some separate rights, special rights? So the feelings of separation started from here. If anyone asks you, they give the one major point, a major area where the differentiation among the people started. So this act is responsible for it. 1909 Marley-Minto reforms. Okay? But when the separation feelings held due to the 1905 Bengal division, due to 1906, 1907 Congress sessions, and finally Surat conflict, and so nationalism feeling increased from the outside of Congress, and many young peoples stand against the Britishers, and that is known as the revolutionary movement in India. So just like V.D. Savarkar, Varindranath Ghosh, Arvind Ghosh, and many other Indians stand against Ras Bihari Bose, so stand against the Britishers, okay? At here, the size of legislative council was increased. Indian allowed to criticize and executive, and they can ask question also. So by one, by year, they are providing some little bit right to us, and we became happy. Two Indian member, K.C. Gupta and Syed Hussain Bilgrami, introduced in Indian Council. So at here, the major victory for us that Indians were allowed in Indian councils, and continuously the members increased. So beta, if anyone asks you that give the last Indian Council Act before the 1857, it was the Act of Indian Council Act of 1853, and the last Indian Council Act was 1909, Marley Minto reforms. Indian Government Act 1990, Montagu-Chelmsford reforms, it was known as. At here, beta, many things were changed. Because beta, when they basically Minto, who worked as a viceroy, he realized many things that in India, women has no voting right, many things were take place, no direct elections were held. So these reforms are very historical from the point of view of India. So at here, what the change arrived, expansion salary of Indian Council and Secretary of India now not pay from the Indian fund. Why? Because if these people are not working in India, not living in India, why their salary pay from the side of India? So it is a very good decision. Now in Indian Council, minimum 8 and maximum 12 members appointed. So members numbers also decrease. High Commissioner would be appointed to give support to the Secretary of India. In Executive Council, the Viceroy, there have 8 members, out of them 3 were Indians. Bicameral legislator, lower house. So beta, first time, bicameral means 2 houses. Division of 2 houses. So lower house known as Central Legislative and upper house known as Council of State. But Rajya Sabha is previously known as the Council of State. Okay? Central Legislative is lower house, just like Lok Sabha, and upper house, Council of State, same as the Rajya Sabha that time. Lower house contained 145 members, upper house contains 60 members. Okay? So at here, the Indians were allowed, okay, come in council and do the work. Now we realize that which kind of patience, which kind of administrative approaches you had. Legislature was addressed by the Viceroy. He could call it meeting and adjourn it. Just like modern time, President can call the session of Lok Sabha and Parliament and can adjourn it. So same kind of right is given to the Viceroy that time. And at here, the diarchy system also made, that division of power took place. Okay. And with in 1919's Indian Act, Indian Government Act, the first time women got the women got the voting right, but due to the property, this right is given, and basically Indian allowed to give the vote. So 1919 Act is very important for us because huge development took place in this act. Then beta, Indian Government Act 1935. Beta, if we talk about the modern Indian Constitution, our constitution has basically more than 285 articles which belongs to the Indian Government Act. So most of the part of our constitution is inspired from the Indian Government Act. Based on the suggestion of Simon Commission guideline, also based on the discussion on round table conferences. So this act is based on 2 things. First is discussion of round table conference, and second thing is Simon Commission guidelines. So this act is very historical in nature. They talk about the All Indian Federation. But if this federation would set up at here, then the condition or face of India is a little bit different. They talk about the All India Federation, which based on the British 11 British states plus my provinces and 6 chief commissionary areas and princely states. So beta, this thing was made, but the princely state denied to participate in it. So that reason, this All India Federation were not made. assume beta for second, if this all India federation what took place. So when the Britishers move out from India, they surrender their authority to this all India federation. So at here, no need of division would be take place. And no leader would be as much powerful that by his saying the division would take place. So it was our bad luck that this federation was not set up by the princely states. Okay, at here, in modern time, you also said in our constitution that in schedule 7 there have a division of power. At here also the division of power made. The union list which had 59 topics that time, state list 54 topics that time, and concurrent list that time it has 36 topics it made. Okay, so division of power also take place. Union list also divided reserved topics and the transferable topics. Reserved topics were those who reserved for the central government or viceroy and governor, and the transfer topics which transfer to the state. Directly on central level made, union legislature had two houses. One is Central Legislative Assembly, which has 375 members. Previously, beta division was took place on the provincial level. At here it was held on central level, and Council of State 260 members would be there. So this division take place. Budget also divided into two parts, a main expenditure and other expenditure part. Provision of RBI. But basically RBI established by the RBI Act 1934, but RBI start working in 1935 and is fully functioned nearby 1936-37. So basically people call it RBI from this act, okay? But you have to mention it. RBI provision were made and the federal court established. This federal court is currently known as the Supreme Court of India. It was established in Delhi. Sir Maurice Gaveir was the CJI of this court, chief judge of this court, okay? Supremacy of parliament. At here the supreme power is given to the parliament, okay? And bicameral legislature in 6 provinces. In 6 provinces, there have a 2 house were made. Just like in center, there have a 2 houses. So same kind of bicameral system applied in 6 state also. So this is the act which very historical in nature, and many provisions were take place in this act. And due to this act, many things were held, okay? So beta this act presented. After that beta Indian Government Act arrived, which we discussed in the Indian Freedom Movement of 1940 to 1947. So beta Indian Government Act, basically this act was presented in British Parliament on 4 July 1947, and on 18 July 1947 this act was passed by the British Parliament, and by this act the provision was made that India and Pakistan would be 2 separate countries, and on 14th August midnight these countries were separated and independent. So beta Pakistan decided that they celebrate their Independence Day on 14 August, and we decided that we celebrate our Independence Day on 15th August. And in the midnight of that one, the Tryst with the Destiny, the great speech by the Nehruji was given, and India divided in 2 parts. So this is all about the British Act, how the British made the provisions, how the things were held, and which kind of provisions Britishers were made. Okay? Thanks a lot.